Good morning. The reading is written in the 34th chapter of Deuteronomy from the New Living Translation. Then Moses went up to Mount Nebo from the plains of Moab and climbed Pisgah Peak, which is across from Jericho. And the Lord showed him the whole land, from Gilead as far as Dan, all the land of Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah, extending from the Mediterranean Sea, the Negev, the Jordan Valley with Jericho, the city of palms, as far as Zor. Then the Lord said to Moses, "This is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have now allowed you to see it with your own eyes, but you will not enter the land." So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, just as the Lord had said. The Lord buried him in a valley near Beth Peor in Moab. But to this day, no one knows the exact place. Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyesight was clear, and he was as strong as ever. The people of Israel mourned for Moses on the plains of Moab for 30 days, until the customary period of mourning was over. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands on him. So the people of Israel obeyed him, doing just as the Lord had commanded Moses. There has never been another prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. The Lord sent him to perform all the miraculous signs and wonders in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh and all his servants and his entire land. With mighty power, Moses performed terrifying acts in the sight of all Israel. Word of God, word of life.
Thanks be to God.
Nathan was like, thanks for all those places, names, by the way, in the reading for today. It's like, you just roll the dice, man. Sometimes it happens that way. But he did a great job, didn't he? He did a great job. Yeah. All right, well, if you want to follow along with today's message, there's an outline in your handout for today. We are in our final week of a long Lenten series called The Land Between. The Land Between signifies, we are using that time period where the Israelites are in the desert, and the Land Between signifies that time period of what no longer was and what is not yet, right? They're in that land in between. They're no longer in Egypt, but they're not yet in the promised land. And we too enter into periods of time in our lives where we enter the land in between. Sometimes we're kind of thrown into it. Sometimes we kind of enter into it gradually. But there's those transition moments in life, right? The moments where it's no longer what it once was, and yet it's not quite yet what it's supposed to be. Right? And so we have those time periods in our lives as well. And if we look at the land between, all right, we think, man, nothing can grow here, right? But yet, if you look at a greenhouse, all right, I'm going to just use the example of a greenhouse. If you look at an example of a greenhouse, what happens in a greenhouse? A greenhouse is prime climate for growth, right? Plants grow really well in a greenhouse, right? Optimum light, optimum humidity, optimum all things that are in the greenhouse, right? But the land between is not like the greenhouse, okay? The land between is not like the greenhouse. We're looking at it and we're like, nope, it's a harsh climate. It's a deserted climate, right? It's a climate that can also, for us, as we enter into the land between, can include emotional fatigue, withering delays. It can include physical pain. It can include financial shortage. we sit there, we look around, and we wonder what can actually grow in this place, right? What can actually grow in this climate? Well, let's go back. All right, let's go back over the past couple of weeks. Actually, things do grow in the desert that we know, right? But also in the land between, we have learned that things actually grow in this climate. All right, in the first week, we learned that complaint grows in the land between, right? When we come out of that which we knew for so long, but yet we're not quite where we need to be, when we're in that period of transition, when we're in that period of not quite knowing, when we enter into that period, that land between, we can complain. And we know this because the Israelites complained, right? Immediately, as soon as they were there, no more than 30 days, all of a sudden they were like, man, I wish we were back in Egypt. Right? Not only that, but then they complained that they didn't have any water. Well, God gave them water. Then once God gave them water, they complained that they didn't have any food. God said, okay, I'll give you food. God gave them manna. All of a sudden, next thing you know, they're like, we're tired of eating this bread stuff. We want meat to eat. Oh, remember the days back in Egypt when we had plenty of meat to eat? Remember that? There they go, complaining again. Right? And it was complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint. So yeah, complaint can grow in this climate. You know what else can grow in this climate? Meltdowns. Right? Because in week 2, we saw there was a huge meltdown. And it didn't come from Israel, it came from Moses. Because he was done with these people who kept complaining all the time. Moses finally looked at God and was like, did I give birth to these people? Why do I have to put up with them? Why did you give them to me? Why do I have to carry this burden? I mean, the dude was having a meltdown. He's like, I can't do this anymore. He's like, all these people do is they complain. You give them stuff, they complain even more. But then in week 3, we realized that guess what happens? This is also a great climate for provision, to grow. And a lot of times, God provides in the land between. Sometimes we don't see it. Sometimes we don't recognize it. But God provides. Every time the Israelites complain, God provided. Right? Every time. When Moses had a meltdown, God provided. How can I do this by myself? God said, well, guess what? I'm going to bring you some people. We're going to bring you some people. We're going to place your hands on them. We're going to bless them, and they're going to help you out. All right? They were the elders. Right? And so God gave Moses a helping hand. There is provision that grows in this climate. And then last week, we also saw that the land between is prime real estate for discipline. Right? And yeah, it's a word that we don't like to hear. Right? It's a word that we don't like. But as I pointed out last week, all right, C.S. Lewis even says, you can't have discipleship without discipline. Because they go hand in hand. And if you think about it, he's right. If you want to be a disciple, you have to learn some things along the way. And sometimes when you don't do it right, you get disciplined when you do it. Right? And yeah, it doesn't feel good. But guess what? Parents, you know this. It doesn't feel good to give discipline out, does it? But you know what? Sometimes it's necessary, right? And when we were kids, we don't like it when discipline comes to us either. All right? So it's not good for anybody, but it's necessary sometimes. All right? So there was discipline that grew in this climate. But today I want us to shift our focus now that we're at the end and realize that in this climate, in this land between, it is also a climate where transformational growth happens. Think about how far the Israelites have come. Think about the lessons that they have learned. Think about the things that they now know. Right? So I couldn't see y'all over here. And Johnny's like 7'10" over here with a stand up in the air. I didn't want anybody snoozing behind the thing there. So, you know, looking at you, Nathan. Oh. Right? And in the wilderness travels of the Israelites, God was out to grow the people of Israel. And he was actually there to grow a specific spiritual fruit in that harsh environment. God wanted to produce, as we alluded to last week, a relationship of trust with the people of Israel. God wanted Israel to trust in God. See, back in Egypt, they only had themselves to trust. Right? They only had themselves to trust. You had to rely on yourself. Okay? If you wanted something to eat and the food came, you had to look out for yourself. Right? And God was like, no, if you are going to be my people, if you are going to enter into this land, I need you to trust me. God wanted that relationship with the people of Israel. And as most of us know, trust is the glue that holds relationships together. You cannot have a relationship without it. And a trusting relationship with God was going to be critical to the people's ability to fulfill their destiny to be the children of God. They had to trust God. Once they entered into that land, they were going to have that trust. And as we saw over and over and over again, that was one of the lessons that was the hardest for them to learn. We don't have water. Okay, I'll provide you water. We don't have food. Okay, I'll provide you food. We don't like that food. Okay, I'll provide you something different. Right? It's like, come on, guys, trust me here. Right? And once they entered into the land, here's what God was preparing them for. All that time in the desert, all that time in the wilderness. Okay? Because I don't know if have y'all ever seen the Google map, by the way, of how long it actually takes to get from Egypt into the promised land walking? 6 hours. No, 6 days. Sorry, 6 days. 9 hours driving, 6 days walking. And it actually shows you the path. 40 years, everybody. 6 days, 40 years. He had to teach them some stuff, right? They just weren't getting it. Okay? But here's the thing. God needed them to live differently than the people who lived there. God needed them to live differently than the people that were surrounding them. That's what God wanted them to do. They were to release, what's our word for this year, Messiah? They were to release who they once were and live into the people that God now knew that they could be. And God needed them to separate themselves from others. All right? They were to live, as I would like to say, as God reflectors. If you know something about a reflector, here's what you know. Even the tiniest amount of light a reflector can amplify, right? I mean, you can have a reflector and the light can be far away, and as soon as it hits it, you see it. Right? And a reflector can amplify the tiniest amount of light so other people can see it. The Israelites were to be a reflection of who God was. They were to be set apart from everyone else. The law, the commandments, all of those things were to set Israel apart from everyone else. It was to help them release who they once were and to help them become God's people. And the idea was that others would then be drawn to their Creator God because of their encounters with this faithful, trustful, dependable, honorable people. In other words, people would look and be like, those people live differently. We want to know what that is, and we want to be a part of it. But here's the question for us as church. as the church, when people look at us, do they see God? Or do they simply see the same thing that the world is offering? Are we reflecting God's light? Because I don't know about you, but I see a whole lot of people who call themselves disciples of Jesus. I see a whole lot of churches who call themselves churches, but all they're doing is reflecting the divisiveness, the bigotry, and the hatred that the world is offering. And that is not what God has called us to be. And that is not a reflection of who God is. We are to be set apart from all of that. We are to reflect the image and the essence of God. And the last time I looked, the message of Jesus Christ was one of love. It was one where he met, where everybody was somebody, which is who we strive to be here, which is what we're strived to be here, Messiah, right? Where everybody was somebody, and there was no judgment. So, what are we going to be? Who are we going to be? Are we going to reflect God's light? When people follow us, will they reach Jesus? Or will they simply reach everything else that the world is offering right now? Are we living apart from the world? Or are we going to conform to the world? And I think that is the major question that faces the church today. Are you going to live apart from the world, or are you going to be transformed from the world? Hold on. Testing, 1, 2, 3, yay. Is it time for a costume change too? No? So their Israelites were to demonstrate through their lives what the Creator God looks like. And I think us as a church and as followers of Jesus, we are to reflect what Christ is like. We are called to do the same. In just a few minutes, we're going to gather around this baptismal font to baptize Amelia. Right? And every time we gather around this baptismal font, we say we baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And after I mark whoever's getting baptized with the cross of Christ, I take this candle, Amelia's candle, and I light it from this Paschal candle. And I hand it off to the baby. No, I hand it off to the parents. Point of reference, just so y'all know. All right? I hand it to the parents, but it's Amelia, it's the person being baptized that I'm speaking to. And I speak these words: let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and glorify your Creator God in heaven. Right? Let your light shine before others so that they can see the work you're doing. So glory can come to who? Not you. Glory can come to what? God, right? Glory can come to God. Because it's not about us, it's about giving God glory. This was the plan that God had all along for God's people. Jesus is just reiterating it in the Gospels. Right? You see, they were referred to as the chosen people. But here's the question for them. Here's the question for us. Chosen for what? Huh? Chosen to keep reflecting that which is out there? Or chosen to reflect the essence of who God is? See, that's what they were chosen for. But this destiny would be dependent upon the people's ability to trust God. Not trust in a political leader anymore, like Pharaoh. Right? But to trust in God. They would have to trust God enough in order to follow. And the land between was their training ground. And sometimes for us, that's exactly what it is for us. It's our training ground. The desert could be a place where they could transform from people of slavery into the people of God. And because they were in training to be God's representatives in the world, they were thrust into situations which either their trust would have to stretch and hold or crumble and fall. And I think that goes for us today too. When we enter the land between, that is a place where our trust in God can either be stretched and hold, or it can crumble and fall. As I said in week 1, the land between is a place where faith can go to grow, or a place that faith can grow to die. And throughout all of their time, God was continually asking the people of Israel, will you trust me? Will you trust me? Will you trust me when you have limited water? Will you trust me when you have a short food supply? Will you trust me when you grow tired of the food that I'm providing? Will you trust me? Unfortunately, the people did not. Repeatedly. Over and over and over again. Have you often heard the phrase, God is testing you? Anybody hear the phrase, God's testing you? Yeah? I hate that phrase. I hate it. Because here's why. I don't think it's a matter of testing. I think it's a matter of trusting. I think the question really should be, are you trusting God? Right? Can the clay trust the potter enough to transform it into something beautiful? And sure, while we're molded, while we're stretched, while we're formed, it don't feel good. But do we trust the potter enough to make us into a new creation? Because God is always at work developing us, if we will allow Him to. Molding us, making us more like God. Right? Another way of looking at it is in terms, let's go back to the training ground, is training for a sport. Right? If you've ever been in sports, you know training is hard work. Right? Training is hard. Even if you aren't in sports. You know what? Learning a musical instrument, it's hard. Right? I remember the first time I learned how to play trombone. I couldn't even talk for like a week the first time I tried trombones because my lips hurt so bad from the buzzing, right? But it takes some time, right? And training can take a hard time. Look, Rocky reduces Rocky's training into 2 minutes. Rocky trains for 2 minutes in that film, right? We know it's weeks and months that he's training. But it's all kind of boiled down into 2 minutes. And growing sometimes takes an extended period of time. Right? And I don't know about you, I like the movie time frame better. I do. Right? In fact, I always try it, but it never happens. Right? I think, I'm going to go one day to the gym, and I'm going to come out looking like this. But it doesn't happen. Now, if I was in a film, it would. 2 minutes, I would be done. Me and JJ standing side by side. You wouldn't know who was who. Right? And the land between is a place that we can grow. But sometimes, guys, it doesn't happen immediately. And sometimes it does hurt. Stretching hurts. Right? Stacy's always on me about my lower back. You got to stretch, you got to stretch, you got to stretch more. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. Right? I was like, I can't reach my toes. Well, if you stretch more, you could reach your toes. And I'm like, but I don't want to. It hurts. Right? But when we do grow, here's the thing. When we do grow, we can come to possess a vital faith that allows us to be at our best when life is at its worst. But be warned, the land between is also a place where our faith can go to die. Right? And always, always remember the Israelites. Growth is not automatic. We can just as well emerge from the wilderness with an embittered heart, with a resentful spirit, and a badly eroded trust. But here's the deal. You get to decide. You get to decide. We get to decide. Because it's up to us to release who we once were. It's up to us to release the complaints. It's up to us to release the meltdowns. It's up to us to release our bittered hearts. It's up to us to release the resentful spirit. It's up to us to release our control and release control to God. The questions for us now, as we come to the end, is will we keep our hearts open to God? I think it's the same question that the Israelites now have to ask themselves as they are about to enter into the promised land. Will you continue to keep your hearts open to God? Will you continue to trust God? Will you be faithful to God? Will you cooperate with God's transformational work? The important thing to remember is you get to decide those things. And all God's children said, amen. Hey, let's stand and sing our next song, shall we?
I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the ocean. I need you now to do the same thing for me. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. I'm calling on the God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. I know with you all things are possible. I'm calling on the God of David, who made a shepherd boy courageous. same God. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then. You will answer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were providing then. You are providing now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You moved in power then. God moved in power now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were a healer then. You are a healer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were a Savior then. You are a Savior now. You are the same God. You are the same God. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness. Free the captives then. You're freeing hearts right now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You touch the lepers then. I feel your touch right now. You are the same God. You are the same God. I'm calling on the Holy Spirit, almighty river, come and fill